DDOCast episode 637, recorded live on Saturday night, May 1st. I'm your host, Patrick. I'll be doing the news by myself again this week. I had to do kind of a late recording this week just because of the way my schedule worked out. This week's screenshot, a group dashes across the Feywild on their mounts in the 507th screenshot of the week. Thanks, Stager, for sending in this week's screenshot. Nice little formation riding there. Although I have to say, the version of the front is not matching the look of the next couple of folks. So curious as to what's going on there. The next 2 and 3 are definitely very similar there. So it's kind of fun. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will maybe be next weekend, just because of Mother's Day and other stuff. It might not happen, and if it does, it might happen a little short notice, kind of like this one did. But we're going to try and get a show in next week. But you can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. You can also find other fun stuff there as well. On the podcast this week, we're going to take a look at some of the game news, including Update 49.1 and community news. We've also got part 2 of our Building a Melee DPS, which we recorded last weekend with Jen. So we'll have the second part of that discussion. We'll start with game news. Update 49.1 was released this week. It was pretty small, but still we got some stuff in it. The animations for Intimidate, Bluff, and Diplomacy no longer cancel the attack chain. So not exactly sure why they did this. It's not like Intimidation doesn't have problems, as it already does, with just not being robust enough to handle most of the DPS that people can put out these days on lower difficulties. But now it doesn't cancel the attack chain. So this just has to do with when you intimidate, when you can intimidate and stuff. So you have to finish the attack chain your attack to intimidate. Now it's not great for someone who plays a lot of tanks and does a lot of intimidating if you're trying to kind of do a lot of attacking in between stuff. So on the flip side, I don't tend to attack a super lot with intimidate. It's usually kind of intimidate, mandate, that kind of a thing. So I'm not usually doing a ton of attacking, trying to get in those quick shots in between the boss attacks and stuff. The pause after swapping equipment has been reduced. So this is something that we talked about last time. I think they reintroduced a longer space of time between swapping equipment, and they were working to decrease that. So that's what's going on there. Let's see, a couple of minor texty stuff. Critical threat range of the collapsible shortbow has been fixed, with its heroic version back to 20x3, and the epic version properly 19 to 20x3. My understanding is that's correcting them in the upward direction for both of them. I believe the heroic version was 20x2, which is not what most bows are. That's what's going on there. Vivance, the Rapier of Rhapsody, now applies its spell critical damage more reliably. That's good. Several new items released in Update 49 now have the correct material type. Alright, this seems to be like something that keeps happening. I'm not sure why new items don't have the correct material typing the first time, but be a thing here. Snakeskin Vest, Gorgon Docent, and Gorgon Armor are now back to being minimum level 8. Corrected an issue that was preventing Bladeforge Iconics from getting their level 15 gear on the hardcore server. So that would be potentially important, given how, depending on how much you're farming for gear, when you hit level 15, you might want some gear from that stuff. Normally, not that big a deal, but hardcore, maybe a little bit. Magical vulnerability from Bound Fate and the physical vulnerability from Grim Fate no longer stacks when the effects from different ranks are applied. So you used to be able to, if you had people in your party take rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, you could stack all of that up, which was pretty significant. They also did some stuff. So rank 2 and 3 of Bound Fate now applies magical vulnerability for the correct duration of 45 seconds. Rank 3 of Bound Fate now properly applies its listed amount of 12% magical vulnerability, and Grim Fate now properly applies its listed amount of physical vulnerability. So apparently it wasn't applying the correct amount to begin with. So probably what happened here is there are a bunch of things that were wrong with this ability. They fixed them. That had the noticeable side effect of making it so it doesn't stack anymore, which probably was not intended behavior in the first place. So it's basically fixing everything. But from a player standpoint, this is going to be, you won't be able to stack them, so it'll be a bit of a damaged nerf. Assuming your party was using all 3 tiers, which most parties probably were not. This will probably impact the push rating community a little bit more than anybody else. So. They corrected an issue with the icon for the new hardcore 4 mount. I'm guessing that means that the 4 is back and is a 4 on one side and a 4 on the other instead of a 6. The wizard version of Eldritch Blade Capstone now properly adds +2 Constitution. Hey, that's good. Things should do what they say they're going to do, right? Knight of the Chalice's Holy Retribution now restores Smite charges again. That's a big deal for that. Kind of one of the really nice things about that ability. Community of Scribing no longer has an incorrect tooltip speed numbers. That's from the Bladeforge iconic tree. World of Balance SLA and Season's Herald has some text corrected. Tier 4 of Angel of Vengeance no longer erroneously applies extra caster levels to Sunbolt. Oh, sad. Tier 4 of Angel of Vengeance now calls out that it applies to alignment spells. Helpful. The favor reward for achieving the proper amount of House Morgrave favor is now available and grants +2 to search and spellcraft. So that's kind of a nice little boost. I like those skills. Those are good skills. Multitude of Menace no longer puts many shot on cooldown. That's important. Multitude of Missiles was putting many shot, I think, on its old cooldown of like 2 minutes instead of the the very short cooldown it now has. Hardcore. The Hardcore vendor now allows access to previous rewards earned during prior seasons on the Hardcore server itself. Again, why is this coming up every Hardcore season? Like, this Hardcore's been out for a month. And this is not the first. I feel like this has been every single Hardcore. The Hardcore does not launch with this as an ability. Where is the disconnect? Why is that true? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Just make it so that it always works, or make it work before you launch it every time. I don't know what the deal is here. Menace of the Underdark, Caught in the Web. This quest is now slightly brighter. Loth has fewer mobs in the final fight. Portal Keepers respawn 5 seconds slower and more predictably. And Anna now notices artifacts from further away. Special shout out to Flimsy Firewood for going in under the hood and Caught in the Web and making the experience more enjoyable for everybody. And finally, the alert icon for a guild leveling up to a higher level now uses the legendary victory icon. Cool. Not actually. Well, I guess that would be the renown icon, legendary victory. Let's see what that is. So that was the release notes. That came out on Thursday, April 29th. There's also there's a lot of information kind of bouncing around from the devs about a couple different things that have come out. Many Shot. This came from Steelstar. Many Shot's animation is intended to fire 3 arrows in 1.16 the amount of time a standard attack takes to fire 1 arrow, scaling with attack speed. It should be slightly longer than a standard attack, but nowhere near twice as long as a standard attack. That said, it's definitely doing that while moving, but it looks like the standing still version may not be scaling properly with attack speed, so they're going to take a look at that. Rapid Shot. Again, from Steelstar, the speed is working properly, it's just not displaying properly on the UI. Something he'd like to fix as time allows. Key Shout. Linabelle popped in about on a completely different thread, not to derail the thread, but key shout has been fixed eternally and will be an upcoming patch. So the explanation of this was interesting. So here's kind of what Linabelle thinks is happening. He said, take it with a grain of salt. There's a lot of guesswork to this, and it may not be completely accurate. But they have a skill replacement system in the game that allows you to make an ability that runs a skill-based package with a different set of skill properties. This wasn't functioning for a reason that Linabelle doesn't know. And if Linabelle did know, he would have fixed the system. Rather than fix the skill replacement, which doesn't really know how to do, simply made a completely new key shout skill that doesn't intimidate but uses your concentration stats. Duplicated some intimidate scripting and told the ability to use the new key shout skill instead of the intimidation skill, using the replacement stuff to run the intimidate check with your concentration check. And then Linabelle showed kind of a screenshot of the combat tracker for this, and what it'll say, it says key shout is making a key shout check, not an intimidate or a concentration skill check. He said this is, for lack of a better phrase, a hack. It's generally best practice to fix a broken system rather than build a workaround on an instance-by-instance basis and leave the broken system in place. But it works, and sometimes in a project, that's really the best you can hope for. So that's what was going on there. There's a question about Stone of Change and Guild Augment, or really the Stone of Change, saying, hey, can we make the Stone of Change use the barter system like the other many of the other crafting systems? And Steelstar said, that would be great. However, there are over 1,000 unique recipes. And a player said, well, hey, last time I checked the Stone of Change and the DDO Wiki, it doesn't have 1,000 recipes. What are you talking about here? And there was a question of, are you looping in other things? What is this? So Steelstar wrote in and said that it's not looping in other systems. These are only ones directly on the Stone of Change. And please bear in mind that the devs don't write the DDO Wiki. Players do. It doesn't necessarily reflect actual game data, just player observations. So what's going on here? The vast majority of these are apparently guild augment recipes. That's a system that they pseudo-ly sunsetted a long time ago. You can't get items that have guild augments on them anymore. That was something that I think they stopped dropping, I don't know, like 7 years ago, something like that. It's been a long time since they've dropped. You can still find them in the game, though. That are what we call legacy items. So they still exist. You can still find them. You just can't get new ones. So Steelstar said they're looking at finally sunsetting that system for good. More details to come later. That change alone wouldn't let them turn the Stone of Change into a barter box immediately or anything, but it'd definitely be a step in the right direction by, reducing the number of recipes in the system. So it sounds like that system might be going away in the near future. Not sure when. Probably not anytime soon. But that is something that is kind of on their radar and a roadblock to the Stone of Change becoming a barter box. Which, hey, Stone of Change being barter box, that'd be super cool. Yes, please. So we'll see if they can make that happen. Some bugs. This was an interesting one about thrown weapon speed. So there's a bunch of stuff here, and there were a couple different things that Steelstar wrote in about. But thrown weapon animations have the same issues regarding engine-based speed capping that bow animations had before the pass. They will need a similar rebuild of the animations at some point in the future. And when they talk about engine speed capping, they're not talking about a particular number of shots per minute, though it usually effectively ends up that way. So what he's saying here is, if you remember with the bow animations, one of the big things they changed was the bow animation itself was really slow. And so they kind of artificially propped that up by just dumping speed boost onto it. But it has a cap, and so a lot of the speed boosts ended up hitting that. So what ended up happening is that in order to fix bows, what they did is they rebuilt the animation to be much faster. So they didn't have to artificially prop it up. that means that all of the speed boosts that you get actually do something. You're not already at the cap just by virtue of using a bow, which is what was happening before. That also exists in the throwing animations. It's, I guess, really stupidly slow. To prop that up, they artificially increase its speed. That means that if you get hasted and you have a throwing speed speed boost from, say, Shirati, those don't effectively do much because you're most of the way to the animation cap limit already. So in order to fix that, they have to go under the hood and give it a new animation. The problem is that's really time consuming. Steelstar said animations that hit a particular speed multiplier on the back end, they can't go any faster. It's kind of saying no matter what other speed mods you apply. Throwers are especially prone to this because the way they were constructed 10 plus years ago was bad. Will frequently hit this cap, especially as you get to higher levels. If you're putting any amount of investment into attack speed, if you would gain enough attack speed to hit or go above that value, you would gain less than expected, or none at all if you're already above the pack. Nothing they did in Update 49 changed this for throwers at all. It will not be fixed until we get entirely new thrown animations. The reduction of some enhancement bonuses to range speed, such as blinding speed, should have reduced thrown speed by 7% or less, depending on how far above, even with or below the speed cap you were at previously. Nothing else should have changed for thrown builds with Update 49. They do plan on remaking the thrown animation in the future, so they don't have this problem. But like the bow pass they just finished, it's terribly expensive, and it takes a lot of time and care. They don't have an ETA on that. Bows did have the same problem until Update 49, although because the exact speeds of the thrown and bow animations are different, the exact amount of attack speed needed to reach the engine speed cap was different. With Update 49's new bow animations, bow builds can no longer hit the engine speed cap under normal circumstances, and every bonus to attack speed you gain with bows should do exactly what it says it does. Too long don't read. Other than the change to blinding speed, which due to engine cap should have changed nothing for most endgame throwing builds, because they are more than 7% above the cap, throwers should not have been changed in this update. Well, players said, hey, this is not matching our experience. Please look again. So, Steelstar came back and said that they've been taking a look at reports, have discovered an issue where the duration of the pause between throwing a thrown weapon and loading a new one has been driven by your bow attack speed and not your thrown attack speed as intended. The adjustments to bows in Update 49 means the number used for bow attack speed on the back end is lower than before, due to the new, shorter animations, which is why you're seeing slower than expected speeds for throwing builds on live. They will fix this in an upcoming patch so that the pause's length is modified by your thrown attack speed. This will be faster than it is now, but depending on the exact numbers of your pre-Update 49 bow attack speed, it may not bring your throwers back to a pre-Update 49 attack speed number, and that is intended. Unfortunately, in investigating this bug, the issue with the thrown weapon using your bow attack speed to determine the pause before reload has been in the game since prior to the game's launch. Oops. If they do need to make further adjustments in the future after this fix, they can, but they would like to measure player experience on the thrown weapon attacks after this fix takes place. Wow. So that bug has apparently been around since 2005. That may be a new record of length of time for a bug that hasn't been found and corrected. So too long don't read of all of that. There's changes. There was an unintended change because thrown weapons were apparently deriving attack speed partially from bows for some strange reason. They're going to fix that, and then they're going to see where it lands. They don't want to just keep propping it up, probably partly because there's only so much they can do, but they want to see what player experience is after it does what it's supposed to do, so they can figure out what they may need to do to fix it. Although, if it's hitting the speed cap, there may not be much they can do. So, at least until they rebuild the attack animation. That'll take us to bonus days. Dido bonus days brings you double Mysterious Remnants through May 2nd. Also, it's Champion Hunter Week. You can find limited time items with the Mysterious Remnant vendor in the Hall of Heroes through May 5th. In the store, double bonus points is back. You can get twice the bonus points in the DDO store through May 9th. Conveniently, Fables of the Feywild is now available in the DDO store for points. You can also find the Feydark Illusionist, Razorclaw Shifter Iconic, and the Shifter Race for DDO points. So, hey, not only can you buy that stuff in the store for the first time ever, you can get twice the bonus points when you buy points to buy that stuff. So, congratulations. Although, to be honest, if you're buying points, check to make sure that it's not cheaper just to buy the actual expansion, depending on what you're getting and stuff. So, the sales for the week: Adventure in Advance, 25% off of Quest XP elixirs and select adventure packs. So if you're looking to get a pack, now would be the time. Just gonna hazard a guess and say Fables of the Feywild is not 25% off for points. Note the select in select adventures packs. Also, probably Parallel Planer's Eyes, probably not also included in that. The coupon code: 5 lasting heroes and potions. The coupon code is Need a Hero. Hey, if you're over in hardcore, these are probably more useful over there than they are on live. Just saying. That'll take us to community news. The 423rd Chronicle. Semeku Grogarian paints the Stormhorns. You can watch a cool painting demonstration on Twitch. Yeah, pretty darn cool. Not gonna lie, that it's always fun, I think, to see what players do to come up with, express their artistic talents, whatever they may be, in DDO form. Paintings, digital art, comic books. There's also been some rather impressive baking things, and arts and crafts like crocheting and knitting and stuff. It's pretty cool to see what people can do with that. Congratulations to Voodoo Spice for his 1000th video. You can read more on the DDO forums. Altbar has created a walkthrough series for the new quest Beautiful Nightmares. So if you'd like that, that's that's probably one of the more confusing-ish ones. I noticed I put out first look videos for when we ran it. When I ran it for the first time on our DDOCast and .com and our YouTube page and Twitch, and I noticed that one has a higher view count than the rest. Last I checked, and I think it's because it does kind of, if you're familiar with Inferno of the Damned or Through Mirror Darkly, it does one of those things where the map exists on two sides. You do a lot of flipping. There's a mechanic for flipping between the sides and stuff, and so it becomes a little bit mazy just because you have to hold the map on both sides at the same time and figure out how to navigate. On one side, things are blocked, so you have to you have to flip to get past that blockade, and so on and so forth. So that if you're having trouble with that quest, that walkthrough might help you. The comment: if you put 2 planar eyes into glass jars, would you have a pair of planar eye glasses? No, because a pair of glasses is one thing, and if you put, and this would be 2 glass jars. Also, someone send Cordovan some ideas for the Chronicle comment. He is clearly running on empty for these. Please give him some better suggestions. Fan site news. We got a shout out for talking about Melee DPS. So you can check that episode out. DDO Players News gets over here. Here to the latest podcast on DDOplayers.com. DDO Stream is your first stop to find DDO on Twitch. This week's Brighter Days Ahead gets to rating. DDOPL gets to R8. And Bard Life sees the lights go out. Also on Twitch, Rix Richard gets into the role. Mystic Dragon Little Mama teaches Mark of Death. And Jerzane levels a monk. On YouTube, Streamtime finds out who done it. That's one of the new quests. Axel goes over the latest news, and Softful Plays goes through Valak's Mausoleum. Shout out for doing Valak's Mausoleum, also known colloquially as Dead Girl. It's out in House J. I kind of like that quest, and it's not very popularly run, including by myself. I don't run it that often either. It is kind of long, and it has a fail mechanic of you have to finish the quest in half an hour, so probably why that happens. Dido Savant wants to know if player versus player would be a good thing. Read more about it over on the DDO Savant blog. My answer is no. Don't need player v player is just a completely different ballgame. I personally just like PVE is so much simpler, and especially when you're talking about uh, being able to uh, buy character power out of the store. Versus player suddenly becomes a lot less of a good thing and a lot more problematic. Because someone might have stuff they just bought in the store to put them over the others. Having said that, you can do PvP. There is some mechanisms for that in DDO, and occasionally people do put on kind of tournament-y kind of things to varying degrees of success and coolness. But it is a thing that happens. So I think mostly though people tend to use that as a testing ground. Also, Mickey gets into gear, so you can read more about her new gear layout on Mickey's Delirium. And they're also letting you know there's a trailer for Peril of the Planar Eyes now available on YouTube on the DDO Unlimited YouTube page. And Cordovan went over notes and answers and questions. So you can get the latest weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream on Twitch to get that information. D&D night on DDO stream. Don't forget to check out twitch.tv/DDO stream for D&D, 7 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. It'll be tomorrow. Tomorrow's episode will be Ryan with the Frost Maiden, which I'm a player in. The week after that, Mother's Day, we will have Oracle of War, which is the one where I'm the DM. DDOCast news. If you're paying attention on Twitch or probably more likely YouTube or our website, DDOCast.com, I've been posting a bunch of videos of doing some runs on hardcore because, hey, hardcore's fun. Kind of half trying to get a cloak and really just playing with some friends. But we've been streaming that. We've mostly been playing on Fridays from noon to 4, 3 to 7 Eastern. So you can check us out there. We didn't play yesterday because just schedules. But I've been taking that and breaking it out into kind of the different packs or quest chains and then posting those videos about one a day. So you can check that out. I'm pretty much posting all of the videos on YouTube, Twitch, and DDOCast.com. So whichever one you want to be looking at to see new content, they're going to all three places. Twitch is the only place I'm streaming live, though. So if you want to catch the stuff live, follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/DDOCast. But if you just want to catch up on it, you can either I'm posting and publishing those videos there, including DDOCast. And then on YouTube, it just kind of has the finished product as well as on DDOCast.com. And subscribing to any or all of those places or following, super great. Helps in a lot of different ways for supporting DDOCast. You may also notice that there's a couple other. I've been posting some 7 Days to Die videos with the Damsels and Rent and Draculetta from DDO Players News. We've been playing a little bit of that, so I've been doing some things there. Also, my guild Lava Divers is going to be doing some D&D, so there'll be some videos on that, in addition to the stuff I've been doing with hardcore and other fun stuff. Basically, long story short, trying to create more content because I'm already playing it, and it's really easy to turn on the stuff. And I'm not doing a super lot amount of editing, but hey, there's content here available for you to enjoy, and there may be continuing to look for opportunities to kind of do that as well. That'll probably in the near-ish, I say near-ish, probably after baseball season really kind of winds down for me. There'll probably be some videos just kind of highlighting how I do a leveling for a life or something like that. Again, you can find all of that stuff, twitch.tv/DDOcast, on YouTube, DDOcast, and DDOcast.com. All three places are getting the videos and whatnot. So, appreciate you watching and following and subscribing and all that stuff. I hope you enjoy them. If not, that's perfectly okay. If there's something you'd like to see, feel free to send me a message, and maybe we can make that happen. that'll close out the news portion for this show. Stay tuned afterwards. We'll have part 2 of our Building a Melee DPS discussion. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to Jen for helping me record the Building a Melee DPS stuff. And to all the contributors for DDOCast. And to San Antonio Games, Wizard of the Coast, and to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. Just kind of be generally aware the schedule for DDOCast is going to be a little fluid and kind of maybe a little last minute-y, just depending on how I'm able to kind of schedule a bunch of different things going on with umpiring and stuff like that. So there might be some more late nights, and you might be stuck with just me a little bit more often than getting a lot of guests, just as my schedule's full. So. But hey, if you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage, or you Twitch DDO, and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. If you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, leave a comment or email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. At DDOcast on Twitter is the best place. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your trust level appropriate, have fun, don't forget to gather for buffs, and don't forget to stick around for part 2 of our Building a Melee DPS. All right, welcome back to part 2 of Building a Melee DPS. I'm your host, Patrick, with Big Deeps Johnson, or Jen. Welcome back.
What up?
And last time we kind of gave a rundown of the different types of melee DPS. So single weapon fighting, two weapon fighting, two-handed, sword and board, animal form. There's kind of some bleed over and stuff. But hopefully that gave you an idea of what the different types do and are good at and whatnot. Today we're going to kind of get into what kind of things should you be looking for on your character. So what attributes from your gear do you want? Melee power, double strike, that kind of a thing. Jen, why don't you kind of take the lead? Which one do you want to talk about first? Because I just kind of threw a big long list of things you could have in there.
I feel like melee power is definitely the most important of those. It's hard to say. Like melee power and double strike are really up there, but melee power would definitely be the most because say if you just have, max double strike or high double strike, highs and 75, 80 plus, melee power is definitely just gonna rule up to a certain point. Because there is much like the AC in this game, there's a point where in that it's the scaling, it just stops completely. Not stops completely. It's just completely escalates down. I think that mark is after the 500 mark, but that's not really an easy thing to get. So you don't really got to worry about that unless like you're a paladin or something. But
please, Sensei, tell me how to get 500 melee power.
That's literally through paladin or maybe fighter. Maybe fighter. I can't remember how. I know fighter can get 400s pretty easily. Barbarian can get like around that area, but 500 that's only a pally thing. So just don't even act like I said that because that's not even like a realistic thing. Cause that's super. But melee power is just it's too important because that's scaling everything that you're doing.
Right.
I'm hitting more. Okay, you got flat damage, cool. Was that damage scaling off of percentage wise? Melee power. I'm hitting more with double strike. I'm making sure each of those hits is just as hard as it can possibly be hitting. Yeah, you need damage, but you need to have high melee power too. And there's different levels of, I would say, acceptable melee power. Like, say if you're just starting. If you're just starting, you got a new character and you're end game and you want to start doing like what R3s, and R1 raids, right? I would say you really want to aim for you want to aim for 200 plus. 250 plus would be like, all right, that's where you really, really, really want to be. But just new character completely, 200 plus, that's where you want to try and get. If you're anywhere like right around that, that's an acceptable start, especially for that type of content. You don't need to be hitting crazy, crazy hard. That's just a good amount to do. But as you go higher, you'll want to be having like, 250, 260, which is very hard to do, say if you're two of them fighting because they don't get that extra bonus. So that's when like, okay, how can I do that? And that just goes into not necessarily feat knowledge, but enhancement knowledge. You just know,
Yeah.
okay, this can go with that, this can go with that. That's just synergy. You do that. That way, I can get away with not having this much flat damage because I have a huge amount of melee power. Or you can't. It doesn't really work like that. Vice versa. Like I can't have, you know, plus 120 to damage and only you know 160 melee power. You're not going to be feeling like you hit hard at all, at all. Maybe for that level, that would be acceptable for that level. But as you rise up, you'll start to realize I'm not hitting hard enough. So how do you do that? That's just through past lives. Past lives going to get you more enhancement points, specifically racial lives or epic destiny lives, because that goes into your what's it called. That just goes into your twists, and twists going to be playing a big part because you want to make sure you have optimal twists for whatever your build you're doing, and they completely vary on what build you're doing. Whether every two of them fighting, two-handed, single weapon fighting, they all vary. There's like a few ones that are pretty much like the core ones, but for most part, you're just gonna want to have like a few ones, but including one of them, the main one is Marshall Him, and got melee power on it. You want to make sure you can get any little bit of melee power you can out. That way you can try and do as much damage as you possibly can. But saying that, it's not more damage to melee power boost than haste boost because those are two big things.
Well, before you get off
Which
of melee power, let's hold off on let's camp on the melee power for half a
okay,
sec. I think it's worth noting that when you're looking for melee power, there's there are some options with items, uh, but there's less of them. There's not a ton of items out there. Like for double strike, for example, there's a lot of items that have double strike on them. There's not a lot. There's not as many options that have melee power. Um, there's some in some of the feats in places, but I think the places that you really kind of hit on is epic destinies because a lot of them have
yes,
um, melee power in their actual core.
yeah, in the cores, yeah.
Um, and then enhancements as well, right? Like
Mhm.
I feel like those are the places where you're gonna really find a lot of melee power that maybe if you're looking for it that you might not have seen before.
Yeah, fighter has a lot of melee power. I mean, you can just go tier 5 fighter and you can get 40 melee power right there through opportunity attack and through the tier 5. Barbarian has decent melee power in it, as well as not flat, weapon bonus damage, which is huge. That's a big deal as well. But Vistani is another one which gives you just melee power, but that's only if you either go to the capstone or do the single one fighting line. Knight of Chalice and Pally has a little bit of the decent amount, but the main thing with Pally, where you get like a good bit of your melee power from that, not a good bit. Well, besides the capstone and the tier 5 that give you it from hitting undead or even outsiders, which is why Pallies are super niche. Pallies aren't the best TPS, but they can be depending on what raid you're doing. If you're doing KT, Pally is preferred, but if not, then it's not preferred anymore. It was out like what 75 melee power or something like that. But they also have there's a swap you can do, which is gets into optimizing your DPS, and the swap is sanctified feather one, and it's 5 plus your religious lore feat. Yeah, 5 plus your religious lore feat. So if you're 20 paladin, that's 25 melee power right there. All you got to do is just smite something right there. And when you're smiting something anyway, when you're Knight and Chalice, you're already getting 5 melee power. That's 30 melee power every time you smite every
Right.
time. So it's just stacking up melee power however you can. Um, there's certain classes which don't do that particularly well, like Ranger per se. Rangers did not do that particularly well. I don't think there's melee power at all in the Tempestry besides the tier 5. I can't remember if in the capstone or not. I don't think there is. Um, but that's why Ranger never felt super strong to me because they didn't have that melee
The
power.
melee power,
And
right?
yeah, it's just a feeling thing because you've been playing builds that have this melee power, and you'll learn like, okay, I'm at this level, I'm doing this type of content. This is the type of stuff. Like this is the type of level I want to be at. This is the type of melee power I want to have right now. And Ranger just doesn't make you feel like I'm at an acceptable level. It makes you feel less than what you are. And you might be like a Ranger main or something. It might be hating on me right now, but I'm just saying, try a different, try a barbarian or fighter or something and come back to me because it's gonna feel different. It's gonna feel a lot different. But melee power items, it's Ring of Prowess. Ring of Prowess, I believe, is an absolute must. If you can, you need to. You gotta get Mythic Boost version of Ring of Prowess. That's 11 melee power right there. Don't let it be a Mythic Reaper. That's 14 melee power off one item. That is so huge by itself. And just stacking things off that through stacking not stacking through sets. um Part of the family set, gotta have it, gotta have it. There's too much good stuff
Yep.
on that. um
Sets. I
Summer
mean,
set is a big one.
doesn't really matter what you're building at this point. Like, get a set bonus.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like but yeah, melee power, it's really really nice to have, and it's pretty necessary to have. You just gotta find wherever you can get it
Yep.
and get it how you can without nerfing yourself too much. When I say that, I'll go back to saying, or you can have like, all right, I got really high like front damage, not front damage, really high like plus the damage, really high melee power, really high double strike, and it's really hard to really hard
To get all
and like
three.
a niche build to get all three. So you're mainly gonna pick like two out of the three, and you just gotta make sure that third one is at an acceptable level.
Right.
That's what you gotta do. So if that third one is the melee power, just make sure it's at an acceptable level. That's all it is, and you'll be fine. Otherwise, you may be feeling like you are a little underwhelming on your DPS side. So
Let's talk about that double strike because we kind of started there a little bit.
mhm.
It's worth noting that double strike over 100% doesn't get you anything.
Man, that's such a disappointment because
I know, right?
I had like a real solid build to work with that, and I was gonna try and bring Divine Crusader back because they got that the 50% double strike and melee power on
Yeah.
that, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be able to get 200% double strike, so I'm gonna have 4 hits at all time. Like this alone makes it so Divine Crusader is actually like worth taking by itself. But then they capped it out, so I was like, well, okay, there's no
What
reason.
Jen's alluding to here is that they originally on Lomania they changed how offhand double strike works. So now instead of it being its own stat, it keys off of your main hand double strike at 50%. Uh, Originally, it didn't have a cap on it. By the time it hit live, it had a 50% cap. So
They just
100%
snuck
double
that
strike
in
is
there.
all you need.
Snuck that in there.
I know,
Oh man, just thinking of stacking
but
all the way up. But yeah,
it's
there's a
important to
couple.
note though, because you were just talking about Divine Crusader. One of the reasons why Divine Crusader is not a super hot Destiny for melees is because their big ability is here's 50 double strike. Well, if I already have 70 double strike or
Yeah.
80 double strike or 100 double strike, that's not really helpful.
Yeah, and it's 50 melee power too, but it's like, well, like okay, like 50 melee power, but it's on a 3-minute cooldown. This is not alone
If
worth
you want
me
the melee
doing
power, you can just do blitz, right?
exactly. Like you can
Yeah.
exactly. Right there, the reason why there's no reason to pick Divine Crusader anymore, unless you want to real do like some type of hybrid melee kind of support DPS, which I've done a build like that where I was like a cleric and I was in Divine Crusader and I wanted to do support and I wanted to have them, I had decent melee power and everything. But I wanted to have the 10% damage off that, off the crusade. But I didn't like it's just not worth really doing because the
The
what's
double
the moment?
strike
The
cap.
epic moment. The double
Yeah.
epic moment isn't worth doing. It's just
Yeah.
not doing it for 3 minutes. If it was like a minute and a half, maybe, maybe. But even still, it's just why would I
I
do
think
this
it
over?
lasts for like a minute and a half, doesn't it? Because it takes down, but
Yeah, it ticks down. Yeah, it ticks down. So that's like a yeah. Okay.
Anyways, back to Double Strike. We're getting a little rabbit trail here.
Yep.
Focusing in on Double Strike. So we like Double Strike. Double Strike is good, but all you need is 100. So if you
All you
find
need is
yourself on a build with 120, lose some Double Strike, get some melee power.
hmm Yeah, if you ever find yourself having an abundance of one of those things on the triangle, abundance of you can't really have an abundance of damage, and you definitely not getting the abundance of melee power unless you're a pally doing KT and you're like maxed out build. But you gotta develop abundance of double strike. Work on those other two. Work on having more damage in some way, flat damage or melee power. Those are the big things you want to work on because now there's literally no reason to have that much, which make it so okay. Now you have the Asmar Scourge past life toggle, and you have the martial toggle, which gives you 12% double strike and 6% offhand double strike. Now, I mean, you could get rid of those and replace those, not completely get rid of them, but you just can toggle them off and do a different toggle one because you just might find yourself having too much double strike. It's a weird problem to have, but say if you're like a 20 rogue Vistani and you're gonna have that much. Or if
Yep.
you're some weird EK build that also going for stunning, that's very specific to me. But like you have a lot, you have a very, very lot of double
I
strike.
think
And
I
it's like,
remember that
well, this
build.
yeah, you just don't. It's not doing anything for you anymore. So it can lead you to doing other things, but it's just knowing like, okay, I have far too much. This is what I need to work on. Just knowing you have to
Yep.
work on something else instead. That's the big thing.
So you talked about plus to damage. Let's talk about plus to damage because that other part of that core triangle.
hmm
Um, probably I mean, we didn't really talk about which stat you're using to damage, but
hmm
your stat is going to be a big thing. Which there's I don't know if we really. I mean, if you want to go into it, we can. I'm not sure we need to go into all the different stats you can use for damage.
Yeah,
Um,
you can pretty much use them all, but
yeah,
there's strength strength you can get the highest with strength, and the reason for that is when you have you can just be shifter. You can be shifter razor claw, and you can have that rage. But what you can do, you can take those bracers, those new bracers from Fate Twist's chest, and you put that on. You can have your strength give you even more strength. Your rage give you even more strength,
yep.
and then you can spec into things into your tree to give you even more strength. So it's like, okay, you have something that literally gets gaining you all this strength, and plus you have like power surge. Power surge is a thing for everything, but strength just always seems like something that's really really more um, easily attainable rather than other things. Like rather than int or dex. Like, you don't ever see anybody with, 120 plus dex or anything, but you can see a barbarian with 120 plus, strength. Like it's not as surprising. So strength is the biggest draw, and there's no reason not to go strength on, say, if you're like a paladin or obviously a barbarian, or a fighter. But there's also different options. Like you can go wisdom. There's like wisdom fighter, a wisdom Asmar fighter is super viable. There's
I really
absolutely
liked my
nothing wrong.
wisdom ASMR monk.
It's good. Like it's good. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not going to be like as high. But
Yeah,
if you don't want to do it as high, there's nothing wrong with that. Dex. The only time you're ever going to really find yourself using Dex would definitely be if
maybe
you're.
more of a range thing, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say like more of a range thing. I mean, you can
Yes,
be a
you
rogue,
could do
but
a
even
rogue, but I
so,
tend to do it intelligence
yeah,
based.
it would definitely be more favorable for Rogue because the big thing about having your plus damage is having your trance. I call it a steroid. Having your steroid as in your know the angles or your divine might or the wisdom one, whatever I can't
The
remember what one called.
Yeah,
But
there's one in falconry
those
that I
are
can't remember.
yeah, those are the super, super important thing to keep in mind with that. So like yes, main stat you're doing for your damage, which could be, any assortment of, strength, charisma, whatever. But it's real important to have a really, really high second stat that's used for your trances. And so if you're using know the angles, then have a swap. If it's not too much, if it's not too greedy, make a collective sight with that stat on. Make a collective sight with 20 in and 11 in on it, or 21 in and 21 in,
If
or
I mean,
11
there's
in on
also
it.
a poor man's option with the intelligence one.
Yeah,
I
there's
think it
a goggles, yeah, like
Yeah, there's goggles like
19 and 9.
Intelligent 9 and
Yeah.
Insightful 9, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely different options for that.
Yep.
Like, just don't be afraid to do that at all because that'll make a world of difference. Because when you're running end game sets and then part of the family, you already get insightful damage on your Hammer Fist Club. So that's already taking away damage that you would be receiving from your trance or your steroid. So now you have to just do more than that, even more than what you were already going to do because they're like, well, because the less likely, the less of that stat you have, obviously not as high. It's not going to be as high as it can be. So, say if you were going to have a stance swap, not stance swap, but a steroid swap, use it and it gives you plus 12 damage. The Hammer Fist gives you plus 8 damage. So now you're just gaining 4 damage. It's really not worth doing the swap. So you got to make sure that swap is really worth doing it. That way you capitalize on all this excess damage that you're going to be getting. So don't be afraid to have, I would say max 2 swaps. I do 2 swaps. I do a collective swipe swap and I do an LGS swap, right? No, I do an alchemical swap. That's my second one. That's really try hard to have that second one, but that alchemical one, if you want to get even more try hard, is you have a sentient gem in it and you stack it with whatever stat you're going to use. That's super optimal stuff to do for your DPS, but definitely like way down the line. Don't worry about doing that off top. Just
I
like if
should mention, because it took me a second myself. We were talking about you'd have a sentient weapon with the alchemical because you can't put the sentient in the alchemical.
yes,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you would have a separate one. Like I think the most the most I'm gonna call it greedy. You would have a tier 3 LGS. No, yeah, because that's exceptional too on that one. In your offhand, no, you can't have that on your offhand. You would have like something different in your main hand, then you have a chemical to offhand. It doesn't really matter. That two doesn't really matter. But yeah, having both of those is just gonna be super important. Maybe it's like some I don't know. You could probably just put something. Is there a weapon that actually gives you like exceptional two that you can actually put sentient on? I'm not
I
sure. I don't
don't
think
think
there
so.
is. But if there is, use it because that's just it's because you can just use 2
And
weapons anyway, right? So
the
swap into
reason
that.
why this works, I want to mention too, is those trance abilities last for like 2 minutes if you
Mhm,
invest all the way in them, right? So you switch that gear in, boost your stat up. It's I think of it kind of as a tertiary stat because con being my secondary. But
mhm.
you boost that stat way up, and then hit that ability, and then go back to your main stuff.
Yeah.
And that wind up might take you a couple seconds or something like that, but then you get the benefit of it for 2 minutes. And
Yeah,
especially
it's something worth it.
if you really want to kind of think about really maximizing that, while you're running to that boss fight at the end, that is there because you've run this quest 500 times. That's when you're switching that in. You hit that trans boost, what you're calling a steroid. By the time you get in there, maybe you're down by 10 seconds, but you're ready to go. And
Mhm.
then you hose the boss.
Yeah, that's just like knowing when to do it. Like you said, like you've done this 500 times. So I'm about to see this boss about to spawn right now. Good time for me to get all my buffs out, get this steroid popping. We're going in. Make sure, but it definitely doesn't pay to do it during a boss fight unless it's a very long boss fight.
Yeah.
But that's when it gets into like you're in a pug raid and you're just carrying the raid because you're the only DPS, right? So you gotta do everything you can to just keep it pushing, keep that progress going. So don't be afraid to do it like stuff like that. But otherwise, if you're in your main your main squad, your guild's there, you guys are just rushing through stuff and you're in the boss, and then if the boss is gonna die in I don't know 20 seconds and you got 10 seconds left by the time you get in the boss, there's no reason for you to swap because by the time you swap back, he's going to be dead. So just knowing when to do this stuff, but again, that comes with experience, like
Yep.
knowing I'm going to do this right then. I'm coming now. It just keeps playing into that because it's just that important.
And with that though too, there's think about some of the bosses. A lot of them have some special attacks that you get out of dodge, right? When Lord of Blades is doing a wind up, all right, back up. Hey, I'm not doing anything. It's a great time to
Yeah,
reapply that buff, right? Like
yeah,
throw
it's
those
very
goggles on, hit the
it's very
know
good
the
time.
angles.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, knowing a boss's pattern can definitely help you optimize your buffs and everything. I need to do this right now. What's a better time? Lord of Blades just jumped up in the air. Like, let me just do this real quick and hope he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
jump on you in the middle, basically. So
Yeah, that's always kind of a bit of a hope and prayer, right? I think you mentioned earlier attack rate. Let's talk about attack speed.
man, attack speed is
Get
really
more.
important because it just get more. There's certain things that definitely help boost that. Obviously, single and fighting line, the fastest attacker next to Wolf, and that's why Wolf is a very high DPS because Wolf has the benefit of having like two-handed fighting stuff, like where you get that ability modifier on your weapon while attacking basically as fast as a single and fighting. That's why Wolf is just going to be the top. But then you got things like two-handed fighting, which doesn't have as much. So it's not worth it to have it on a boss because you're not going to be attacking as fast. Two-weapon fighting, it's not happening as fast. You're going to have 15% if you have haste boost or not haste boost, sorry. If you have haste or blinding speed or anything of that sort, it's going to be 15%. If you're in Fate Singer, it's going to be 18%. If you have uh, Capstone Vistani, is going to be 23% if you do all that together. But even though Vistani, the capstone, it does not actually say it adds it. It did not. It says it's 5% for everything, but it does not say 5% if you actually look at your tooltip. Maybe that was actually changed today. I actually don't know, but that was definitely something that kind of irritated me because I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't feel like it's worth it. But a buddy of mine, he was actually doing it, and there was a noticeable difference. Like you could actually see the 5% difference, and that's gonna play out in the long run. The longer a fight is, the more hits he's getting in, the more DPS he's doing to you, and you can't have somebody else doing more DPS than you. So now you got to figure out how to attack more. So that means you gotta like, what can I do to attack more often? Haste boost, haste boost, haste boost. Haste boost is too important to just speed up processes for you know doing DPS on these bosses. Make sure this phase goes down as fast as possible. Because when it comes to crunch time, they say if you're last man standing in the raid, your last DPS standing because all the rest of the DPS or whatever they all died, and you got to burst this boss down. He got 50k left. And you got one haste boost left. You better be putting your all into that haste boost. You better do everything you can because you know you can actually get it down fast enough with haste boost rather than it's like a melee power boost. You will not do more damage with a melee power boost than a haste boost. Strictly because, like, yes, you are hitting harder with the melee power boost, but that is a quality thing versus quantity. And in this case, quantity will always win out because in the long run, if it takes 5 seconds for you to do this, then it's gonna be like, okay, the melee power boost wins. But there's a line, and I can't give you the exact mathematics of it. But when you get to that line, that's where like, okay, double strike or not double strike, haste boost, attack speed, it's just gonna beat it completely. So you'll definitely see people just using it more and more and more and more. It's vital. It's absolutely vital to have if you're a melee player at all. I don't think that works with range. I can't remember, but
Well, it
I'm not
would it would in theory work now. The reason why it didn't before was because we were hitting that animation cap, which is
Mm-hmm.
gone now. So in theory, haste boost would work better for ranged now. Although, as I'm saying that, I think throwers may still be hitting an animation cap. I
Yeah,
don't remember if that
everyone
was in.
besides Thor. Yeah, everyone besides Thor. Basically, it's like
Yeah.
we're we're good. But
Well, the thing with melee power is going to increase that front number and your sneak
yes.
attack number.
Hmm.
It doesn't increase the other things that are coming after that. It doesn't increase how much maybe you have a debuff that's kind of thrown in there or something. But that
Yeah.
haste boost, you're attacking 30% more often, right? Like that's
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah, that's a really really big deal because you're just gonna be outputting damage like crazy, absolutely crazy, more than you would ever do. That's you do that with your steroid or with your epic moment. Like say if you're doing tide turns, getting into epic destinies, do that. You do all those three things at the same time, and you're
Woohoo!
just shredding bosses. So you just
I-
need to make sure you're just optimizing when you use this stuff.
There's really only one reason to not have haste boost as a DPS class, other than the animation cap problem for throwers, and that's if you can't get it.
Yeah, and then that point, you better find a way. You better twist in that tier 3 from Legendary Dreadnought.
Yeah,
You better twist it in. You gotta have it. You absolutely need to have it because if you don't have it, you're gonna be feeling like you're leagues behind everyone else.
yeah.
It's too much of an impact to have. Besides that, so have it. Have
Hmm.
haste boost. It's important. Attack as fast as possible without losing too much. Do it.
And I want to kind of just mention some things that one thing that you kind of mentioned earlier, but also stacking up those abilities, right? Which
Mhm.
is great. Vistani Knife Fighter. Take like my rogue is a Vistani Knife Fighter. There's the what's the? It's like every minute you get a new bonus thing. Um,
Yeah, the
I don't remember what it's called.
it's
Stars
in
something maybe.
Stars is actually one of the things.
That's
I
right.
can't remember. It's Versailles Fortune. I think it's called Versailles
That
Fortune.
sounds right. But
It's something like that. Yeah, you get the different procs of it. Yeah, chance of every minute. Yeah.
when you're trying to maximize this DPS, think about the order you're going to hit these abilities. That's kind of what I'm going for, right? So I like to hit that one because that one's going to last for a minute. Then I hit
Hmm.
the one. He's in Shadow Dancer, and there's two boosts in there. One of which has a longer wind up time. So then I try to
Hmm.
hit that one first. Then the short wind up time. Then my Reaper double strike, um, which is probably actually only giving me like 5 double strike. But and then I hit that haste boost, right? I hit that
Hmm.
haste boost last because then I get the most time of that in that.
Yeah.
So that's the last part of my wind up sequence.
Yeah, it's knowing what abilities,
Right.
like the wind up, like okay, yeah, this, and it's funny because I was just running Shadow Dance the other day, and the Shadow Imbuement, yeah, that takes a minute to do, and you can't like skip that animation by tumbling or anything. You have to go through that whole thing. Um, so yeah, it's like okay, I gotta back up, I gotta, and my current build, like Rogue Fighter Monk, I gotta make sure I, do my steroid, then I gotta when I'm backed up, I'm using a assassin trick and I'm using a shadow imbuement, and then I'm doing like I'm building up my finishing strike. There's a lot going on there, but it's just
It's a big
knowing
wind
like
up.
okay, yeah, it's like I gotta know, I can know when I gotta go in. And there's a bunch of times, like say when I'm playing, or if I'm streaming, like you'll literally hear me say like, "Oh, I did that wrong," but it might not look wrong, but I just know I'm messing it up because it's not optimal. Like,
Right.
okay, I did this improperly, so now I'm gonna take longer to do this DPS, or I forgot to do this because I have 6 buttons to hit already. So now I missed this one, and I'm not doing as much as I could. But it's just knowing how long something takes to do, knowing the animation of it, knowing where how fast you need to be on the boss afterwards, so it's still preferred for you to even do it in that order. Order is super important, like you just said. That's just knowing what you are capable of doing, and like say because it might be one of the times when you might even like need if you have so much stuff that might be overwhelming, you might use a macro for it. Who knows? I don't know. I've never used macros, but otherwise it
I
might be
started
real
using
easy
one,
to.
and I'll tell you why I
Did
started
you?
using it. I
You want to know?
programmed a macro to target self heal for hardcore.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That's fair. Hardcore's a whole different league. I can't touch that. I'm horrible at hardcore. But yeah, it's just
So the other thing I
no.
want to I want to pull in with action boosts, specifically, we just talked about a bunch of like boosting in general, right? Boosting is great.
Mhm, yep.
We kind of talked about how to sequence those a little bit, use them. Even if they have cooldown too, right? So don't be afraid to use one and then go in and attack when that one's out. Use the other one, right? So you got the two. Like take for example in Shadow Dancer. I think one is
Mhm,
like 180 seconds, one's 120 seconds. So that first wind up when I'm waiting, right? Like I might hit them both, and then
mhm,
I just kind of end up cycling through them as they come up off timer for something like Shroud Portals, right? Like I'm just trying to like maximum sustained DPS. I could
mhm.
wait the 60 seconds to get them both synced up, but I don't necessarily need like then it's just 60 seconds that I'm not using the one, right? So don't be afraid to just kind of keep cycling. You don't have to get all of them.
Yeah, just keep doing that. As long as you can get like one like real optimal cycle. It's
Yeah.
really good when you can get them all together at the same time, but there's no exact reason to that, and that can put actually a lot more pressure on you because then like okay, I just missed this one. Now I'm really messed up because there is a bug that's been around for a long time, and it's been around with KTA with Northern Angles and with around Divine Might. I don't know if it ever happened with the Wisdom one, but where you can hit it when you already have the buff on you and you hit it, you press the button and it doesn't actually go off. You use the spell points and everything, but it doesn't actually go off. And if that happens, that can devastate you. That can like, oh, okay, because you got everything else synced up, but then that didn't work.
Yeah.
So just don't be too down on yourself if something like that happens, or if you just miss one thing. Like, no, because whatever you're doing, it's more DPS than you were already doing. So don't be afraid to do it. So
The other thing I
just
want to talk about with the particularly with the action boosts is we should mention. I want to mention throw this out real quick too. Human. Wait, is it human? I can't.
the
I
weapon
know
has
my
its own boost.
ranger has a thing where I use the sprint boost, and I just get like 20 range power whenever I use an action boost.
That's a
I think that's
that's a
a
filigree
human or
set.
half elf or something. Maybe it's a filigree set. I don't.
Human and half growth and PDK, they have a stat boost. They have like you can have like
Maybe
plus
that's what it
3
is.
to like different stats. Yeah,
But
when you
you
boost.
can stack some stuff on those. I want to
Yeah.
mention that. The other thing I want to talk about is charges, right? Because action boosts you have a limited number of charges. You can get more. Fighter has some extra charges. I want to say barbarian
Barbarian.
does, but I'm
Yeah,
not sure. Yeah.
barbarian does. Half orc
Um,
does. Yeah.
there's also the tier 1 in Dreadnought, I think, has
Yep,
extra
tier
action
one.
boosts.
That's a we ain't talking about Epic Destinies or twists yet, but that
That's
one, the
nice
extra
one.
action boost, if you don't have a lot of action boost, you need to have
Yeah.
that on your twist. It's a tier one twist.
The
That's super important. Oh,
the
gotta
other
have
thing I want to mention that you've kind of said in passing about is reinvigoration.
Draconic Reinvigoration. If you can invest to it, get it. It's too important, especially as you start. It's not as important if you're doing easier content. When I mean easier content, I mean like bosses. Your boss fights aren't taking a long
An hour.
time. Yeah, if they're not taking an hour, or if you're doing stuff like say if you're doing R10s and there's one shrine in the R10, or you're taking an exceedingly long time to get to the second or third shrine, you want to make sure you can get your boost back as often as you can. So that's when you want to get Draconic Reinvigoration. Have that thunder. If y'all don't know, Thunderforge tier 3. I think you need 20 fire flogs that come from Fire and Thunder
Yep.
Peak. Do the raid. It's really worth it. You make those weapons because they are hot. And if you get when you get really really good at it, good at your timing. You can in your 2-up fighting per se, or it doesn't even matter if you 2-up fighting. 2-up fighting just what I relate to the most. But you just swap that weapon in. It's like every 160 seconds. 160 seconds, I believe. You can gain a boost back. So keep like a mental timer in your head. That's like a way further thing. So
Yeah.
though, but like if you are at that level, like that's the only thing you want to worry about. Like, oh, it's about that time. I should be able to get a boost back, and you do it. You want to do the same thing like that when it comes to like affirmation, like swapping something in like that real quick. Oh, it's been a minute. Let me do it. Boom, swap back. Super important. Action boosts are what defines your DPS at a certain point. Because if you're not haste boosting, you're not DPSing as well as you could. And why aren't you having this many boosts? Why do you not have boosts left? Did you not use them right? Did you not use them properly? It's just being really smart about what you're doing and knowing the raid or quest. Mainly the raid. Well, I guess it'd be quest too if it's just a really really long quest. But yeah, just try to be smart about them. And Draconic Reinvigoration can have you wanting to use them a little more freely. So
Yep.
it's definitely an investment
And
I would make.
the good news is that raid is I mean, it's been around longer, so it's an easier raid, but
Mhm.
flogs have never been dropping as much as they are now.
Yeah.
Uh, a
Yeah.
lot of people actually already have them, so they don't necessarily need more. And you have raid runes that you can get a bunch. I don't remember if it's 20 or 10 that you get out of it, but um, it's never been easier to make that weapon as long as you can find people to go and run that raid.
So
But
there's no excuse. Round up your people and just go do the raid. Like,
there you go. So that'll wrap up part 2. We'll keep talking about this stuff, and I don't know. We might be 5 or 6 parts. Who knows? We're gonna keep talking about it until we run out of things to talk about because we want to cover a bunch of stuff and make it so people can make better DPS. That's what we're going for. So, Jen, why don't you talk about your streaming and where people can find you?
Well, if you want to find me every now and then, once in a blue moon when I'm streaming, you can go to twitch.tv/Big Deeps Johnson. I stream pretty much high content only, whether it be, well, it's pretty much exclusively push raids, as in like high Reaper raids. Like right now, we're doing R8 Demigod and Dryad. We're
I
trying to
think it
get
might be
that
R9
through.
now.
What do you, huh? I was not informed. Okay, R9, R9 Dryad. So that'll be the next thing. I'll be streaming whenever. But yeah, just if you like what you're hearing, I do it more over there, and I do even more. So yeah.
Drop in, ask him some questions.
Mhm.
Thanks for listening. We'll keep talking about this probably for our next show. We've got a lot more to talk about building a DPS. Thanks to Jen for joining me today. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOCast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. You can also find show notes, past shows, and more on our website. And you can find us on social media for latest cast updates. At DDOCast on Twitter is the best place. If you'd like to join the discussion, leave a comment or email us at DDOCast@gmail.com. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.